Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second panel discussion. So I'm going to be calling to the stage our panelists. I'm not going to give the intro yet until they're on their seats. So please join me and welcome with clapping our panelists. We have Chris Udoh, we have Majid Biggar, we have Olufisayo Bakare. Thank you. And then we also have Herald of Kokopelli, who will be joining us as we proceed. Thank you. So I have with me here Olufisayo Bakare, who is a seasoned interior professional with over a decade of experience, renowned for her ability to showcase the multifaceted excellence of African artistry. Her design philosophy centers on carving the phenomenal of the familiar. And this has positioned her through the creative sector. I would also like to add that Fisayo curated an all-women ensemble. It was shown at the Yemisi Shillon Museum, which was a very indelible mark on the tapestry of the art sector. So please help me welcome Olufisayo. Thank you. And then we have with us Majid Biggar, who is also a curator as well. Majid works with SMO. SMO is a gallery dedicated to also showcasing the African art experience. So please let's give it up for Majid as well. We have Chris Udoh, who is the managing director of Madhouse, this institution that we're sitting in. Chris is also an artist as well as a curator. So one of the things we're going to be finding out here today is how he's able to balance his artistic practice and the administrative form of art. So please let's give it up for Chris. Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, I have Mr. Herald with me here, who is the founder of Kokopelli. Kokopelli is an art gallery here in Lagos that is also dedicated to showcasing African art. Please let's give it up for Mr. Harold. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going straight into it. Today we're going to be discussing curating the future. We all know that right here, right now, this particular exhibition is showcasing emerging expressions, which are artists who are undergraduates in the Nigerian institutions. So when you are an artist, right, you want to express, you want to showcase what you have. It's one thing to be able to express, and then it's another thing to have a platform to showcase that. Here, Chris, we've been able to give undergraduate students a platform to showcase all their many expressions, both digitally and with the traditional form of art. So as a curator, can you explain to us what you are looking for in art or in artists? Like they always say there's an eye. There's an eye, you know. We would like to know what that eye is. Like, how do you know when this artist is ready or when this work is, you know, would I say worthy, of showcase?
So Valerie, you said create, and everybody thought you said Chris. Yeah, so that's why
No,
they
I said
handed
Chris.
over the mic to me. But hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for coming for this talk. As a curator, I think it's very important that when searching out for artworks and for pieces that you want into your particular show, there are a couple of things that you have to put in place. First is the cultural and the social context of the exhibition you're trying to put up. And the other one is the quality of the work itself. I've always had this notion that have amazing artists here in Nigeria, very brilliantly, technically correct artists in Nigeria. And I know we're going to start with kind of a banger, but our works are really pretty. But in terms of having that soul to connect to, we don't have a lot of that here in Nigeria, and that's why we have Madhouse and different organizations like Create, trying as much as possible to educate these artists to go beyond and dig deeper. So when I am putting up a show, there are a couple of things that I'm looking out for. Does this work encapsulate the the concept, what are the historical contexts and all the social contexts relating to the particular exhibition I'm putting up, and how does that align, methodologically and also in terms of technique. Yeah.
All right, Majid, would you like to speak a little on that?
Um, Hi, good evening, everyone. Really, I think it's really just more of the same of what Chris here has already said. For me personally, the most important thing is the quality of the artwork. So I always look at the finishing. Is it good enough? Is it strong enough? Is this a work that I feel comfortable putting up in a gallery space? And how do I think my audience will respond to it? Also, I like to see consistency in artists. So I like to see that you are able to consistently produce strong works, that you can carry out a message and deliver over like a body of work instead of just one-off pretty pieces here and there. So consistency, strength of your work, and yeah, I think that's part of what I would.
Okay, that is very interesting because we had a panel discussion earlier. Actually, we've had like three, but in the first one and the third one, we talked about moving from the known to the unknown. Just like Chris mentioned, you cannot begin to talk about curating the future if you don't talk a little bit about the past, because the only way you can move forward is if you know where you're coming from, and everyone has to have some sort of identity. This also brings me to another question. Olufisayo, you have a background in design. How does this influence the way that you create work?
So usually from an interior design point of view, you have a concept statement that governs the work and the selection of the pieces that are put into a space, why the spaces are positioned in the way that they are, the finishes, the textures. Those are things that are considered from a human-centric standpoint, and it's the same system that is used in curation. So I've exhibited in a museum setting, which is more academically inclined, as opposed to something that is for the marketplace in terms of buying and selling. And starting would always be the governing theme. The first one was Invincible Hands that you had mentioned earlier, which was speaking about the strength and the tenacity of female artists. The second one spoke about the brain drain that is happening in Nigeria with water under the bridge. And so everything that I have done kind of emanates from my background as a designer, and it kind of comes on board to build on the body of knowledge that is shared within an institution that can further the conversation by educating.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Harold, you have a gallery that you're currently running, and for that, I would like to know, like, what influences the pieces that you showcase in your space. I'd like to know what influences that.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So at Coco Pelli, we look at the storytelling side of things, right? We like to see the source of the inspiration, where everything is coming from, but specifically the story you're trying to tell. We're trying to carve that niche for ourselves that we want to capitalize on intentional storytelling. So yes, that's like the summary of what the gallery, stands for.
Okay. I like that you also talked about, like, would I say, the individuality of the gallery space itself, and then how you try to pull the artist or the works to fit, the vision and the mission of your gallery. So that means, in terms of curating, there is something in it in you that you're trying to pull out, and then you're like finding the right works that fits this particular idea or notion with that. So I would like all of us right here to just talk a little bit about what actually drives your curating journey. Like, what exactly is your passion? Like, what is that core? What is your core when it comes to curating, before you now begin to, and then how do you now fit pieces into that? Because these are artists who are leaving school, and we have to be honest, curators and artists need to work together in order to curate the future, So there is something that you're thinking about that is the future, and I would like to know what that looks like.
asking this to me. Okay, so for me, I think as curators, the basic thing that we're doing is storytelling. And in the whole ecosystem of the art markets, we're all storytellers. But I think the curator has a huge responsibility, not only for themselves, but to the artists, to the audience, and to the collectors. And what I try to do in my practice is, and I'm more focused on academic based curation, because I think it allows you and gives you room to really think about the idea and get to the core of it and take that idea in such a way that the audience can be palatable, like the audience can get it in a very simple but metaphoric manner. Um, and I think when setting out to start projects, what I do basically is to one, I I walk around a lot of mythologies. A lot of my work is centered around mythology. A lot of my work is centered around nature, and I try as much as possible to connect and find the artists that are working on this. For me, I'm particularly interested in multidisciplinary nature of showing work because I think that the audiences interpret things very differently. So not only interested in two dimension, also audio. I want you, when you walk into the space, the story and the things we are trying to tell you speak to you based on touch, based on hearing, based on seeing, based on feeling. So a huge number of my work always involves those different multiple mediums and layers of showing the particular story we're telling. I've been working on this curatorial project for the past 2 years. I thought that it was ready last year, but at the point when I got there, I realized that it wasn't ready because the work tells you how long it wants you to work on it. Um, and this project is even bigger now because I'm involving other artists from across Africa and around the globe really to tell this global story. So find artists that are really championing or talking about the topic you're exploring and find them in different mediums so that your exhibition is a little bit more interesting and it covers everybody. Because remember, we're curators, but also at the end of the day, we need to involve a lot of design thinking in how we approach projects. So design for all, basically.
So I would agree with everything that Mr. Harold and Chris have said here. Really, an exhibition is all about intentional storytelling. So for me, every exhibition starts off with like a theme or an idea or something that I want to pursue. And I look for artists who have works that fit into this thought that I have in my head or this emotion that I want to pass on to the audience. So for instance, in my first solo curated exhibition, it was called Crossroads, right? And it was all about Crossroads for me was at a point in my life where I felt I was at a crossroads between knowing where next to, I guess, what to do next, how to proceed in my own career personally, and how to carry other people along with me on this journey that I'm going through. So I looked for artists who had followed for a while, who I felt were also at crossroads in their own particular artistic journeys, and reached out to them, talked to them, engaged with them, and saw that we were going through similar experiences. We had like a similar mindset, thought processes, and as such, their works were able to effectively carry out the story that basically I wanted to tell. So really, it's all about having an idea in your mind. I feel exhibitions should not be seen as just standalone displays of artworks. They should have meaning. They should tell something to the audience. There should be something about that art or that exhibition that connects people together, that forms some sort of dialogue that people can take away, once they see that exhibition and go back to their houses. So that's what I always look for. I look for storytellers just like I am, people who can tell stories in their artwork, who have very concrete ideas in their mind of what they want to tell with their pieces, whether it's painting, whether it's sculpture, photography, whatever the form of medium is. I also would like to agree that, yeah, it's very important to have diversity of medium in any exhibition, because there's nothing boring than just going and seeing just paintings everywhere or just drawings everywhere. So you want to be as diverse as possible, as inclusive as possible. Include as many different types of artists, as many different types of creators. It could be digital, it could be physical, it could be installation, performance art. It's just about being able to tell the strongest and best story possible.
I believe that deserves a round of applause, guys. You guys are not clapping. Why? Okay.
To build on what has already been said, I think that one of the most important avenues of curation is educating the audience. You can't really determine who sees the works that are on display, but you can govern the minds of those that walk through the gallery walls and implant something that would trigger an effect. So cause the exhibition effect a body of knowledge that has been built upon based off of the experience that you're giving the gallery goer. So one of the currents that I use as a curatorial tool is education. How impactful is it going to be beyond just the four walls of the exhibition space? Running on social media, having conversations with the press is also something I think through which a technological advancement passes through from the tactile, so from the more physical form of art making to a, a virtual one. So I've had quite intense press, just kind of using the 20 Naira note as a classroom. With the Invincible Hands exhibition, we were speaking about women pre-Nigeria, so art history. It was an art history class basically, and we went through pre-independence, post-independence, and the contemporary era, and we went through about 70 artworks, talking about a story and filling in the gaps because there's a lot of underrepresentation with female artists. Even if we're looking through the room, I think there are more men here than women. I'm not sure. I think there are more men generally than women. And so as you pursue your career as artists, you will see that less and less women are being represented. And so as a woman who was exhibiting for the first time, what I wanted to do was to represent the voices of the lesser heard names. And it was like a symphony of works from Susan Wenger, who was not even who is not biologically a Nigerian, but her impact in the art world has earned her the title of Nigerian, to names that had not even exhibited before on Nigerian soil. And it was important to put these works together to further the conversation and to further the story. So if the baseline of curating that exhibition was women, the undercurrent was art history and filling in the voids that you couldn't necessarily see in a textbook.
Thank you very much for that answer. That's very interesting because I was also one of the artists who exhibited in that, and I found that very interesting that she had. I mean, it was quite, like Majid said, it's one thing to exhibit and then it's another thing to have like different kinds of work being exhibited at the same time. And then knowing that the core of this exhibition started off a 20 Naira note and then a personal story, that is very interesting, which also draws the line between being a curator and being an artist. You would see that curators don't just wake up and curate. You know, there's also something inside of them that they're trying to express. And aside that, they also have things that drive them and help them create a niche for themselves. Listening to all of them, you can tell that each and every one of them have their own niche or their own story that they're trying to present, which then leads me to Mr. Herald, who is also a collector. Apart from the fact that he owns a gallery, he collects art. And I'm really interested in knowing, you know, what informs the kind of art that you collect.
Okay, so I'm going to divide that into two. The part where I collect for the gallery and the part where I collect for myself, right? So personally, I don't know, there's just something about pieces you can relate to personally as a collector, right? For example, I was here on Friday, was that the opening day? Yeah. And I know there are a lot of over 100 pieces here, but I saw one and I couldn't look at any other work at the point because I was drawn to the storytelling, you know, and the way the story is told, because there's storytelling and also the way the story is being told, right? So I just really enjoyed the work, and So in scenarios like that, I will consider, if this is something I want to always see in my space, because I enjoyed it at that moment, is it sustainable for me? And yeah, because I even like try to walk past it to check other things. I just told the guy, go and tag it, because I could feel that connection. But on the other hand, if I want to collect for the gallery, that's more in the business side. It's not really about my taste. It's about the taste of my own collectors too, and what I think would go. You just know that okay, there's a lot of potential in this work. You don't have to connect to it personally. I mean, yeah, you have a bit of that, but you know that generally, even if you do not like this work enough to put it in your space, you know someone that loves this, that would love this work. Yeah, so those are the two different factors, basically.
Yes, very interesting. So now, I'm very interested in knowing how art and technology can then come to play in the same field. This exhibition now, for example, is taking art to the next level with the blockchain technology. That's a new digital era. And we have constantly seen exhibitions where they've said, oh, art meets tech, and things like that. I would like to know, Chris, how, seeing that you're working here in the Madhouse, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but seeing that you're working here in the Madhouse and the Madhouse was able to collaborate with Chris on this particular project, I'd like to know what was running through their mind when they saw that, oh, this is a blockchain technology sort of exhibition. It's taking the art market to the next level, the digital level. What did you think about that?
Hello? Okay. Yeah, I think technology has come to stay and we're not going anywhere. Like, it's literally not going anywhere and it's a part of the art ecosystem now. And while we're speaking, while we're all talking together, we're talking about being really open to showing work in different, multiple ways. And one of the leading ways right now is through technology, while collaborating with Create. And the reason why we really wanted to do that is because they have been championing that part of technology here in Nigeria. Nigeria has a couple of, the Nigerian art scene has a couple of problems on different levels. There's a documentation problem. Then there's also the, authentication of like the artwork. How does the artist know where their work is right now? How many collectors has that changed hands? And the system that creators has produced, I wanted to say that creators created, well, that creators produced allows you to track that system, which is very beautiful and gives us the ability to document and also keep some of these records of, oh, who is with my artwork? Where is this here now? Where is this in 2050? But beyond that, I think art needs to be more accessible, and technology also gives that accessible nature to art in general. But I'll be really curious to hear what the other panelists have to say about technology.
I agree, especially Olufisayo, as someone who is very, very passionate about culture, and things that have happened before and bringing them, to the present. I would like to know your thoughts on the future.
There are years that ask questions and there are years that answer. And I think that it is important to not lose sight of why we are creating in the first place. I see art as a form of documentation. The artist is the person in charge of capturing a moment in history. And so using technology wisely as a means of spreading that information, I would okay it. But going into the realm of AI, I think it gets very tricky for me, and so I'm less lenient on that form of art production. Just personally, I think that in Africa, or specifically in Nigeria, even through our fashion, there's a lot of slow production, right? There's lots of bespoke. You go to your tailor, you know that it's custom made for you. And I see even in that field, a lot of them are trying to standardize their measurements, but we're not all one size fits all. And so I feel that we'll run into some bottlenecks when we start generalizing and making art that kind of looks and sounds similar through the use of technology. And we need to be very careful as to how we use that tool, because I do not think that there will be any coming back once we cross a certain threshold.
Thank you. Majid, would you like to add to that? Just before we ask the audience to throw in their questions.
Well, the only thing I would like to add to that is yes, technology is very, very useful in creating and I guess you would say presenting an artwork, but it also does much more, especially for us as curators. I mean, thinking of something as simple as QR codes, and how that made exhibition catalogs so much more accessible to a lot of people. Now you have online viewing rooms that allow people from overseas to come and see your exhibition without actually being in your country or even on your continent. I mean, Zoom alone has let me reach out to and connect with artists from different parts of the world that I would never have been able to reach out to on a normal day. So there are various levels in which technology is very crucial to art. And I think it's kind of a sector that is not being explored as much as it can be. Everyone looks at art and thinks, okay, yeah, you have artists, you have curators, you have this, but we also need tech guys. We need people that will help us build these systems, help us build apps that can put our art out there, really like increase how our reach, and who we can connect with this art. So like they both said, technology is here to stay. It's been a very, very valuable addition to the art industry, especially for curators, and it just makes things so much more easier.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to be asking questions. Does anyone have any questions, please?
So we spoke about how technology helps art in a wider view. So as curators, would you say the invent of technology like AI has reduced the worth of digital art in general? So like in more simpler terms, would you say AI and all has reduced the value of digital artworks like photography, digital paintings and stuff like that?
Well, for me personally, yeah, art is a human thing. It requires the human element for it to truly be art. So it's one thing to, open up your AI tool and type in some keywords and generate this beautiful picture. It's another thing to have an idea in your mind, and then go through like the technical steps that it takes to moving this thing from just an idea, an image in your head to like a physical product that can be enjoyed by a lot of people. And AI is a really good tool, but on its own, it cannot give you quality art. You still need that human element. You still need the artist at the end of the day to impute it and correct it and, just fine tune it, make it as presentable and as beautiful as possible. So I don't think that AI can truly ever reduce the value of the human artist. I think that for some people, for some disciplines, depending on what you do, let's say you're a digital artist, it can actually help your practice and help elevate you to a higher level.
Yeah. I mean, also to add to that, I think we as artists and creators in general are in the soul business. We're not in the business of multiplying things. And that is because every particular artist who is creating work has a very unique gaze and the way they see the world. And the world needs to see the way you see the world to be able to understand how to live in the world. So yes, like AI would have that power to multiply 1,000 pictures into different places. But how, and this is a conversation I think is very important from now on, is that, yes, how do we as artists build the soulful parts of our practice in such a way that whatever comes, which it will come, we will be ready for it. At the end of the day, like AI multiplies things 1,000 times, but then again, you see very differently, different from the way Majid sees, different from the way Valerie sees, and that can never be taken away from you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie. Concerning the question you asked about how influx of AI works might affect like photography, but I would say like photography actually helps AI work better, basically, because I myself have discovered like artists that create AI works. Actually, so there was this artist that created like works, AI works basically. Then seeing our works, there was like a particular photograph of like particular photographer image I made, and I could like see like the relation between the photograph and the AI generated work basically. And this is not once, this is not twice. So from my observation, photographs are actually like improving like AI generated images. So like for me, I feel like if there are no photographs, real life images of things, there might not be able to be the existence of like AI images. And also, I don't know if some of us know like this exhibition. Uh, Okay, I've forgotten the title. So it was hosted by Vogue. So this exhibition was an exhibition whereby, like, instead of like photographs on the wall, like descriptions of image were actually exhibited, basically. And this also to like promote like people being able to like imagine like visuals just from reading text. So like our input as humans, either through photography or literary, actually helps improve AI. So at the end of the day, AI is it's just a part of the reality. It's not the actual reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, just before we get your question, I have a question. So, we talk about curating, we talk about art, and most of the time when we talk about curating art or an art exhibition, I would say here in Nigeria, the visual that comes to your mind is paintings, right, or sculptures. But we have more than that. We have digital artists, we have photographers. I mean, an institution like Madhouse now, I know that they've had a couple of photography workshops that they've had. And thinking about curating the future, right, these digital artists need a platform. So what measures are being put in place to make sure that there is a balance, between artists that are creating traditionally and then new media?
When she said Madhouse, I was like, yay. So Madhouse is positioned not only for visual artists and for photographers. We're actually covering all the creative industry, music, performance, digital arts, graphic design. And one of the things that we're very particular about is creating the opportunities for these different groups to thrive. Sometime in the end of the year, we're going to be doing a program called the Creative Enterprise Program, where we're opening up the doors to different creative entrepreneurs that have been working for like 6 to 1 year. But that more information of that will come in. But yes, I agree with you. I think the focus has really been on traditional art, and that is because we as Africans are tangible people, even though we're also very spiritual people. So for the longest time, we have always engaged with art in very close proximity. We can touch it, we can feel it. We use it for sacrifices, for worship, as a form of worship. So bringing something that is kind of in the air, feels like and putting so much value on it, kind of feels like a rip-off to us. That's the honest truth. But then again, we need to also move with the tide and with the times to understand that value changes and value increases, and wherever value is being put, that is where our nose should be. So we at Madhouse are really championing that and are really particularly interested in that. If you see in this exhibition, there's a virtual room for like art pieces to be shown. Eventually, we are going to collaborate with a couple of gaming organizations to also bring that bits of things to the forefront to, really trying to connect and really prioritize the whole creative industry. I don't know if someone wants to add, because you're looking at me while asking that question.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to take our last question before we have our panelists give their final word.
Okay, I want to come from the area of pricing our works. Now, because I heard from the other panel that we have, one of our panelists was saying when he started the way, how he started his career in art, while he was painting on the streets for people just to earn 1,000 naira for him to survive. Now, these are gallery owners, these are collectors. How do we put price on our work? Now, we are young people just coming out from school and we want to make edge. How do we go about pricing? Is there a way we underprice ourselves? Is there a way that we overprice ourselves? How do we, is it by some of those things that you highlighted that, our portfolios, Does that add to our pricing? So how do we go about it?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Majid, would you like to start, seeing that you work with the SMO?
So pricing is actually a very complicated thing, especially when you're dealing with emerging artists. It's really hard to find a benchmark price to put on emerging artists' works because there's not really a lot that you have to compare it to. This is a guy that has just started exhibiting. He has not really done anything before. So you don't have any records to trace to find pricing. And that is actually a method that we use as curators to determine the price of works. We look at what shows you've been in, what fairs you've been at, your exposure, who has your work, who has collected your work, and then we assign a value for it. So my advice for emerging artists when you're starting is to, I know it's not going to be the sexiest thing, but it's to start small, all right? So you look around and then you may find a contemporary of yours who has been in a show or who has been in something, right? You discuss with that person, you find out what their work is going for, and then based on their own exposure and your own exposure, you can typically find a good middle ground as to where you believe your work should be placed. When we as curators want to start an exhibition and then we reach out to the artists, we always ask them, what is your artist price, right? And then the artist tells us, okay, based on my own assumptions, based on the amount of time I've put in to create this piece, based on how much it costs me to purchase materials, transport the works, frame the works, this like this, I think this is a fine price for me to receive for my time and efforts. We as curators will now look at other factors like, okay, who else is doing similar work? Who else has like a career trajectory that would be similar to this artist? And then we will now advise you that, okay, this your work is a bit undervalued, is a bit overpriced, things like that. So it's really, really complex, but I think it's a communal effort. It's just working together with the gallery, with the curator, with your fellow artists. That's really just, in my own opinion, the best way to find the pricing of your works.
Okay. So I think it's a very interesting question because sometimes we don't even have the answers, right? But what I would say is for an emerging artist, you have to start from the beginning. Like when you want to start the career, you have to look at where you're going to. That's the first thing you need to consider when you want to start tagging your works, right? Because why I said it's dicey is because we can't say it's because of duration anymore these days, because you see someone that just came about 5 years ago selling at the price of the masters. And so what I'm trying to say is what determines price mostly this time is the art market, right? The collectors that are overzealous, right? And just based on their vanity, or it could be anything. But for you, you're looking at your career, you're looking at where you want to get to. Let me give you illustrations, right? If you start, small, in quote, that could be a disadvantage to your career because a lot of people will have your work and you will get to a point in life where some collectors are not interested in your work because it's everywhere. That's number one. If you want to put a lot of price from the start, a lot of people will ask questions. Have you gone for residencies? Have you done this? Do you have MFA? It's a lot of questions. So you just have to look at, okay, so I'm sorry to say, but look at how hungry you are at the point, right? Like, okay, can you survive just churning out works, applying for residencies because you're planning to put your price at that point where collectors cannot look down on your work and it's not going to be like pure water? Or you want to use this to sustain yourself because you don't have any other option, then you have to make it available or accessible to anybody. So it's very tricky, but the most important thing is your own convictions, personal convictions. Where do you want to get to? How do you want to start? What impression do you want to give to people about your work, right? But I will also advise that you shouldn't start, this is not part of a question, but this is just like an advice, right? You shouldn't start bothering yourself about selling at first, if you that's considering where you plan to get to in life, in your career. But yes, like I said, you can't really determine these things. If you have a gallery put your work on Artsy for $12,000, right, as an emerging artist, the collector that is going to come for it without knowing who you are is still going to come for it, right? And there are masters who have been doing this for 30 years and they've not sold a work for $2,000, right? So you can't really say this is what, but what I think is most important is your personal convictions on what you see, about yourself and where you see yourself getting to.
Sorry, I just want to add something in relation to what Mr. Herald said. I think for emerging artists here, one thing you should be concerned about is pricing yourself out of the market. So I've had experiences with several emerging artists, and they came to me and they're like, "Oh, this is my first exhibition, and I want to charge, for instance, 5,000 USD for this." Now that is not really a feasible price for an emerging artist, because what that means is if you do a show this year at 5,000 and you want to do another show next year, you have to show that you've grown. And part of the things that show you've grown here is the price of your artwork. So are you going to jump from 5,000 USD to 7,000 USD in the space of a year as an emerging artist? Very soon you develop a sort of, I don't want to say reputation, but collectors talk, galleries talk, and they're like, I don't think this work is worth it. This person hasn't done enough to reach these certain things or this certain price range. So that is another thing you have to take into account of not pricing your works too high as to price yourself out of the market.
I think these are really wise words said. I did an exhibition last year called Old Wine, New Skin, and it was featuring some of the big boys in the industry, Duke Asidore, The Bends. And what I was particularly interested in that conversation was the sustainability of careers for artists. That's something I'm super passionate about. And it's the issue of pricing is very tricky because value is not, oh, we drop this thing here and you think it's 5 naira, but he might think it's 500K. She might think it's 5 million. But then again, you need to think about yourself and where you want to be. Do you really want to, start earning 10K now? And after 2 years, you are lost in the market. We have a lot of artists that, I call it the firework effect, where gatekeepers touch your head, you're blowing, is looking good. You don't even have the character to keep the finances that you have or to preserve and multiply it. And when you get to that point, it's very thin up there. So you lose your breath and you'll get lost in the whole ecosystem. And that's what the art market does to you, to be very honest, at the end of the day. So instead of prioritizing, how much will my work be, how much will my work cost right now, prioritize how much value can I put into my work so that when people see it and each time they see it in progression, they know that it's worth more than what it is. Remember, it's not about the money, but the money is very important. It's about how you're telling the stories. Because if you tell, like if you put an artwork here that really makes sense, that tells a very good story, a connecting story, a metaphorically, a metaphoric connecting story, people would buy your work. But first, you need to prioritize on value first. And then you have your personal convictions. Obviously, you know what you're worth. At the end of the day, like some of us know what we're worth. And sometimes we always overvalue ourselves. But always use that internal compass. But remember, your career needs to go this way and doesn't need to go this way and this way. Do you get? Okay.
All right, so we'll have our last question and then we call it an evening.
Sorry, my name is John, and the question is, as a curator, is there like a mentorship program for the emerging artists? Because most of them have been asking all day, like, who do I talk to? Where do I go? What's the next thing to do? And in my head, I'm like, I don't know. So how do you, is there any program that mentor them, like, this is the next thing, this is the next step after selling your art in an art fair or after, in an exhibition, this is the next thing to do? Because most of them, this is money we're talking about. Sometimes money makes you, want to do different things. So the question is, how would you advise an emerging artist to behave after a sale?
All right. This is my question. I've been waiting for this question. So I'm going to answer in the capacity of a programs manager. So I work in Rel Arts Foundation. Rel Arts Foundation is a foundation that's dedicated to helping emerging artists find their feet. So yes, there is something for you after, schooling. Because one of the things that we're particular about is like, how can we help the market grow? How can we help artists grow? How can we help collectors? There are people who are just getting into collecting. And if they are going to collect, it will be best that they grow with the artists that they are collecting. So the Rel Arts Foundation has a residency program, for young emerging artists just like yourselves. You can apply. Matter of fact, applications are ongoing at this point. So you can visit our website, our Rel Arts Foundation, and do that. So yes, there are programs there are programs that are available for artists.
It's a good question, and I think it's a missing link. A lot of established names and voices. As a creative, I looked for mentors, right? I joined institutions, but I didn't quite fit in, because my experience was not in Nigeria. I came having spent 10 years out of the country, getting my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. And I wanted to find my feet in a new world that I wasn't so accustomed to, although this was home. And so I established a platform for creatives. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Yellow of Lagos, but I established... You're familiar with the Yellow of Lagos. I'm the brain behind the Yellow of Lagos, and our focus now is on education. We have ideas that are in the pipeline, so I don't want to jinx myself, but very soon we'll start having more programs that help emerging creatives across board, right, to find their feet, understand how to pitch, understand how to secure sponsorship, so you guys can actually do this thing on your own. You don't need to filter through a gallery. It would be nice to do that, but you can find your feet on your own. And also, while you're trying to look for money, don't outprice yourself or lowball your price point. For the gentleman that asked the question about how to price for your works, get into a gallery and intern. Give your time for free. Go and understudy. You've learned the simulation within a classroom, and you've built the skill and practiced your 10,000 hours of practicing. But now practice the marketing aspect of your talent. So give in your 10,000 hours in an institution and understudy it and understand what you're doing while you're still earning a living. So you're not necessarily at this point in time looking so much to make money or have money as an exchange of your work. You want to build on knowledge that you have already created through theory and then have it in practice within galleries or foundations, or look online, right? Google is at our fingertips. Literally everybody has a smartphone. Go out and look for opportunities. Just like Rel, there are like other platforms that are available locally and internationally that are willing to help you. There are NGOs that have been established for this, but nobody's going to come and market it to you. It's those that ask questions that get the answers. And so start from where you are, start from what you know and who you know. Look within the industry to see what organizations exist that you can be a part of. That way you're not just an individual trying to find your feet. It's a group of people trying to develop and find answers for themselves.
All right, so we'll have Chris say a final word and then we're done for today.
Thank you, Valerie. So I think this problem can be solved from two ways. The way I always see problems is that you can solve them, and it needs to be solved from these both ways: inside out and outside in. So outside in is institutionally. One of the things we're doing here at Madhouse too is also to create that platform for creatives to truly thrive across Africa. And we're starting a residency program soon. And I think there need to be more institutions that are centered and called around this educational bit. This is something I'm really passionate about. If you notice in my profile, it's artist, curator, art manager. And that is because there's a huge responsibility for structured institutions that would drive this change in a fantastic manner. The second pillar is through individuals. I think, and as I said before, that we as curators also have a very huge responsibility. The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And how do you make sure that we get proper harvest? Is by multiplying the laborers. So if you can find a young art manager or a young curator to mentor, and knowing that your mentorship has a ripple effect on society generally, that would be fantastic. I do this personally. I find artists, I have conversations with them and teach them how to build sustainable careers. But there's only one me, and there's plenty artists in the world. So I'm also building that generation of new art curators and art managers who go into the world and harvest this beautiful harvest we have. So outside in, inside out, institutionally and individually. Thank you.
All right, everyone, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you've taken something away with you from all the panel discussions that we've had. I hope that this work and this exhibition impacts you in ways that you didn't think that it would. All right, Elemental House, take it away. Thank you, everyone.